Hello, good evening. Welcome, everyone. It's been a long day and it's been a long, how many weeks now? It's Thursday. Hopefully, that actually means something. So, we're close to the end of the week and hopefully, you've got weekend plans. So, my name is Michael Swisher. I am with the Partnership for Children, Youth, and Families, which is part of the Department of Human Services and the Child and Family Services Division. We actually have been putting these on for a couple of weeks now and really trying to provide opportunities for parents to connect with each other, which is really kind of not much they can do connecting, but please, I welcome you to use the chats. But it's a way for us to try and reach out and provide some supports to families. We generally do workshops in person for people. Not been able to do that, obviously, so we're trying to come up with different ways to do that. Our hope is that this is useful. We're trying to keep it to 20 minutes of content, stuff that we can turn into, that are recorded and then can be reused by anyone and viewed by anyone. We'll hold things open for questions. I see people that are actually answering what I asked there. Thank you very much. So as we're waiting, go ahead and post in the chat box zip code, number of children, school they attend, and if you've got any younger than school age, go ahead and just throw their ages in there, okay? That's really helpful to us so that we know who we're reaching or not reaching. It also, I promise we will not use any of this information to be shared publicly whatsoever, okay? So series, like I said, it's a series that we've been doing on behaviors and managing behaviors. We did one last week on incentives, which really ties into consequences. It's a way to get kids to do things they don't want to do. Consequences are really about what we do when they do stuff we don't want them to do. So let me go ahead. Like I said, there's a team of us been putting this together. We will continue with more of these next week. We had a minor incident this week, and for those that may have gotten different links, I apologize, but we had a webinar that got Zoom bombed earlier this week, and so we had to really assess where we're going. So we will continue these next week. We're not sure what platform, but we'll be putting that out to folks, okay? Hope you can join us and continue to be part of this and tell others. So as I was saying with consequences, I really kind of view consequences as one more step in a series. We started talking about structure, setting up routines with kids, clear expectations, having the house organized, and what that allows us to do and allows our kids to do on their own. Then we talked about incentives, which is, again, helping kids to figure this stuff on their own. Consequences are one more step. It's kind of okay, now what do we do? The behavior happened. Even with our best intentions and all of our expectations set up, the kids still did the thing we didn't want them to do. So we have to come up with something. Consequences can be positive and negative, but it's one more step. So what I'll talk through is a bunch of sort of thoughts around consequences. I read up on this stuff. I actually have done this presentation a couple different times. I've been doing I've added more today. So good news, bad news, it's new material for me. Excuse me. One of the first concepts I'd like to think about is the separation piece. When we think about consequences in kids' behavior, sometimes we need to separate ourselves from them because it really ticks us off whatever they did. We need to separate the child from the behavior. Like there's a picture of a little girl who's drawing on the wall. That needs to stop. I need to pull her away from that wall. I have a child that's sitting on a chair. Sometimes that's a way to start a consequence. In and of itself, a timeout is not necessarily helpful as a consequence, as much as it is like, okay, sit here, calm down, we will talk about a consequence. That may be enough of a consequence. There's a child who's got their hands in the food, so we take the food away, but we separate. Another separation I want to be very clear is we separate the child from the behavior, okay? Kids do stupid things. Kids are not stupid. And the more we can use that sort of language, what you did was really dumb. Not a good choice, bad choice, whatever. I love you. You're a wonderful child. This was not a good decision. Okay, not a good thing you did. So lapse in judgment, but they're not stupid. They're not dumb. Please don't blame them they're responsible for the behavior, but they are not the behavior. You always do that. Those sort of things, not helpful. Really what I want to try and do, and consequences are really just another teaching tool. Let's actually talk a little bit more about that. Oops. Yeah, we have translation issues sometimes because I do this in both languages. So consequences, that's even anyhow. So they are not revenge. It is not about us gaining some satisfaction of making them feel that pain, even though it's a natural instinct and sometimes it can feel good, like, oh, I'm going to make you hurt, but it's really not teaching them anything. And that sort of hurt thing can lead to us doing things we really don't want to be doing. Talk about separation. It separates us from the child even more. They don't feel safe. They don't feel comfortable with us. And really, it's not teaching anything other than mom or dad got mad. So revenge, it's not. It is not a demonstration of our authority. When kids do these sort of decisions on their own, it goes against what we want. We lose control of what they're doing. And you know what? We never did have control of what they're doing. We can try, but ultimately they're their own person. They're going to make their own choices. We don't need to show that I'm in charge, darn it. It's not helpful. All it teaches them is mom and dad's in charge. And when mom or dad is in the room, then I'll do what they say because they're in charge. But when they're not in the room, can we be sure that they're doing what we want? So we want consequences that are helping to teach. These are by no means any way to embarrass or humiliate a child. Teaching them will help them learn a new behavior or change the behavior they're doing. But humiliating or embarrassing them just makes them feel resentful. So consequences are a response to a behavior. They make a decision, they engage in some sort of action or behavior, and we respond with a consequence. Okay, it's us responding in that way. It's a lesson to help them learn. So the way we come up with a consequence that is really helpful, it's trying to think about what is the lesson I want them to learn? What do I want them to change? What's the behavior I want them to do differently? Thinking of that way. So as we think about a consequence, what's going to help them get there? They are decisions that we make based on choices that they made. Framing it that way is really helpful in pushing it on them. This is, honey, this is a choice you made, decision you made, and this is how I'm going to, this is now leads to the decision I need to make as a result of that. You made a choice, I'm making a decision based on that choice. The more you can do that, you're separating yourself from this, and it's not about you, it's about them and the decisions they make. I do notice there's some questions coming in. We'll hit those at the end. Thank you for questions, and please add more. Final thing about consequences is consistent, not final, there's more I'm going to be talking. Consistency, holding on to consistency among children, and that doesn't mean the exact same consequence for different behaviors. Kids are different, but we need to make sure that we're not having favorites, or some kids feel like they get the heavier, the heavy hand versus the other child. Be certain that, we really are, I've got a 5-year age difference between my two kids, and the consequences are very different because I'm expecting more from my older one than the younger one. The younger one has some bigger behaviors than the older one, so there are consequences based on that. There's also consistency between parents. If there are more than one person who are parenting this child, and if there's grandparents or other folks in the room, in the house, in the home, please be consistent as much as possible around what those consequences are, what those behaviors that you're trying to correct, so that they get a consistent message over and over again. And finally, consistency over time. That what you say and do Monday is the same as what you say and do Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday and Friday. I want to make a note. Try and do that as best you can. You're not always going to succeed. There are some times I got enough. When we're living through to what we are right now, you're going to get a point where I just can't. And you kind of rub your hands. That's okay. They will be fine. We will be fine. But to the extent that we can hold consistency, the more they'll be able to learn it, and the faster they'll be able to learn it. Okay, let's explore a little bit more about consequences and types of consequences. Oh, a little bit more there. For us to be as the teachers, the best teachers, they're going to learn from us if we can model self-control. So being able to be calm in the moment that we're seeing it happen. If you need to pull yourself out, honey, I need a timeout. I'm really mad about this. This really makes me mad. You can say that, but then step back and say, I'm angry. I need to calm myself down. We'll be talking about this in 10 minutes, but I need some time first. You go to your room. I need to go to my room, whatever. But hold on to that self-control. Show empathy. It may sound weird, but hold on to me. Hang on for me. When a kid makes a mistake, he or she knows it. They really do. They're not doing it on, okay, there are instances where but generally, when they mess up, they know it. They're embarrassed. They feel bad. they don't want to disappoint us. That is a deep thing for kids. All right. We actually know this in conversation and surveys from kids. Disappointing their parents is a big thing. And so they feel that. They feel that deeply. So when we're piling on other emotions, we're not helping. So showing some empathy, like, you know what? You made a mistake. It was a dumb thing to do. Not good. Here's, it happened. When you did that, it messed up with other things. But I understand it wasn't a good thing and you didn't like doing it. And I'm sorry. You can give that hug. It's okay. Have a plan. And that's kind of what we're trying to get to today, is that you have some tools and plans so that when it comes to that moment, because it's not a if, it's a when, you have a response. So let's talk more. So different types of consequences. There's natural consequences, logical consequences, and artificial ones. Real quick note on the picture, you've got a child who's holding up a poster on a street that said, "I was suspended from school for cussing out my teacher." That is humiliation. It's embarrassment. What is he learning here? He's learning that if he cusses a teacher out at school, his mom or dad is going to make him stand on the street and hold up a sign. He's going to be embarrassed. That's not helping him really learn the behavior. It's learning that it's going to be bad if I do this, but we want him to learn something about the cussing piece. So anyhow, artificial. Let's talk some more. Natural consequences are really just kind of if you just let it go. And sometimes that's okay to do. Just kind of let it happen. If you think about some examples, we've had this conversation with both of my kids when they were smaller. They have a favorite stuffed toy. They want to take it on a trip. We're going away. And we say, we can take it. We're responsible for a whole lot of things. We can help you try and help you remember. But if it gets left behind, it's going to stay behind. I'm putting this up front because when it happens, if it happens, you've got to be ready to say, "I'm so, so sorry." Remember that empathy thing? And be ready to deal with the screaming and crying that will happen when little puppy, whatever doggy, gets left behind. But then don't go back to get it. Okay? It's a natural consequence. Another natural consequence. I've got a teenage boy, and he can go out. He doesn't need a coat or anything on. So when he goes out and he gets cold, yeah, he does. He spoke with a mom a couple months ago who talked about how she was really struggling because she would actually take a coat for the child who didn't want one, because there's two kids. They go to the park. The child who doesn't want the coat gets cold. Then they all have to go home. So I said, no, you got to push back on that. That child who didn't take the coat, "Honey, we're going to be here for another 20 minutes. I know it's cold, but we're going to stay here because your sister wants to have a turn. So you can play. If you want to sit next to me, you can, but we're staying in the park." So, of course, don't be going to the park right now. But let them have this, okay? There are times when we don't want to have our natural consequences. I've got a child sticking a knife into an outlet. Yeah, I need to jump in there, okay? Need to stop letting them shock themselves to death. No, not okay. Playing with fire, running towards a busy street. Those are things, we're not going to let that just happen. But the idea with the natural consequences is we let it happen so that they feel the effects of their decision, okay? Logical consequences. These are ones that we implement that follow along with whatever the behavior was. Some really easy examples are when a child is playing with something and drops or makes a mess, or is playing with paper and puts it all over the place. He or she can clean it up. We got a picture of a child sweeping up from the floor. They can often, depending on the situation, they can fix things. They can clean things up, that sort of thing. Okay. Another consequence, there's a picture of a child with a door. This happens in my home, where a door gets slammed because someone's a little upset about something. You can take the door off, or you can do what they call positive practice. "Honey, I know you know how to close the door properly, so I'm going to ask you to go back and show me 5 times. Give me 5 times closing it and properly." "Awesome, thanks, 5 times, that's good. Next time it happens, maybe you're doing 10 times, okay?" Or if it continues to happen, then you take the door off and it stays off for 24 hours. But that's a logical thing. It's something you've put in place as a result of a decision or choice that they made. One more thing is I like to talk about artificial consequences. These don't have any relationship whatsoever to the behavior, but it's a tool for us to use. We use this in my home. Actually, we have, and I'll talk more about this, but it's a consequence that you're implementing because you need something. They need to feel like, that wasn't a good thing. So I'll talk more about that. A couple more things. Really thinking about the consequences, and I reference this in particular with the natural consequences. Let them feel a little pain. We may have a tendency to rescue kids because we don't want them to get hurt. We don't want them to feel the pain. They may cry about something. It's like, oh, it's so hard. Like with the stuffed animal, we're going to turn around and drive 20 miles on the highway back to pick up the toy and, lose whatever amount of time from our trip. So really let them this happened. Okay. When we went to the beach a couple years ago in the wintertime, I had a child that didn't want to wear shoes. And so she didn't wear shoes and her feet were really cold. And we just need to acknowledge, yep, it's cold. Here's what we need to be careful too as parents, that we're not saying, I told you so, or anything even remotely like that. Empathy, yes. I'll bet your feet really are cold. Yep, you don't have shoes on. Mm-hmm. We can leave it there. They've got their lesson. They knew oh, I should have put shoes on. They've got this. We don't need to help them along. So let them feel a little bit of the pain. I want to be very clear also. I'm not talking about hitting sort of pain, anything like that, any sort of abusive behavior whatsoever. There is never any reason to hit a child. It's not necessary. When I'm talking about pain, it's really just like feeling like I dropped my eggs because I was thinking I was a big boy and I could carry the eggs in my basket, as the picture shows. So let them feel a little pain. Here's the other thing. Because of their choices. I said it before. They made a choice and we need to make a decision because of it. The consequence is not something we're imposing as the authority, as the parent. It's a decision or response to something they did. Honey, here's what happened. You made a choice around this, and now I have a decision to make around the consequence because of it. Okay? So the more you frame it in that way, the more it's about them and their decisions, the more they will own them. So how do we do this? Start by making a list. I like lists. What kind of list? Well, a list of infractions. We are very familiar with our own kids. We know what's there. We know what they do. You can sit down with them. And here's a beautiful thing, doing it with them. And there's actually a handout on our website for doing this that's got a grid and a table, and you can put the infraction. You can put, big, medium, or small. And then what are some consequences and go with it. Let the kids come up with ideas. Sometimes they come up with some pretty good ones, like steep ones. So little infractions, big infractions. You see the thermometer kind of showing when it's bigger, and that should be the case. If you've got, a small thing, you don't want to be flying off the handle and have this big consequence. Same time, if you have a big infraction, you want to have a consequence that goes with that. Big. Okay. So make that list. Have that list to start with. What are some of those consequences that can go on there we're really thinking about? If we were thinking about the teaching piece, some ways to help us. Thinking about task specific and time specific. You want consequences that are tied to a specific type of behavior. For instance, if you have a child who is hitting another child, then I need you to not hit your child or to hit your sister. Okay, you have lost the Nerf guns for this time because you keep because you keep shooting your sister. So I'm holding the Nerf guns. Okay. If you got a child who's hitting the sister, then I'm taking a toy away. I'm taking away a privilege, and I've got task and time specific. So they have something that they can work towards. They can fix it. It's in their control. Okay. We're not just taking it away and I'll give it back when I feel like it. It is, I'm taking it away for 2 hours. For the next 2 hours, if you don't hit your sister, then you can have the toy back. If you hit your sister somewhere in there, then we start the time again, and then we start the 2 hours. So it is on them. We're giving them the power and the ability to get it back. So many consequences, and I am guilty of this, are just I'm taking it away because I'm mad. And so let's give this to them so that this is how they're going to learn. The other way is just us controlling them. Okay. This is them actually having control over and changing their own behaviors. The focus on the child who's hitting his sister, his sibling, is really on, not hitting my sister. Okay. So what are some ways we can do this? If anyone's got an incentive system, see my webinar last week. And yes, these are recorded and will go up on our website. So if you check out the website, it's in the chat. You can go and see the one we did on incentives last week. So one of the consequences, you were supposed to do X, Y things. You didn't do it. You didn't get a sticker. Okay. Simple consequence. Completely artificial. built into an incentive system. Okay, that's another type of system where they're filling up a jar. Another consequence, like I'd mentioned, loss of a privilege. You can take stuff away, okay? And as I said, tie it to you can earn it back by doing X, Y, Z, okay? I'll actually run through some real quick examples. And, part of that privilege is now, especially with kids, there's a lot of screen time. So taking away some screen time, that can be okay. Okay, so if you think about some different things, if a child doesn't get up after 2 or 3 times, and that's an issue more and more with a lot of kids right now because there's no school bell. So guess what? So if you're like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes staying in bed, then you know what? Tonight you go to bed 20, 30 minutes earlier. Problem solved. Or tomorrow morning, I get you up 20, 30 minutes earlier. Put it on them. This is again, their choices, their decision. The child that gets distracted while they're studying because they got that iPod and it's so easy to slide over to something else and do something. So guess what? They get to do their homework with me in the living room so I can see what they're doing. That child wants to be in their bedroom, but no, they got to be with me. And if they can demonstrate that they can stay focused on their homework for today, then tomorrow they get to be back in the bedroom. We'll try again. I'm giving them other opportunities. They leave their plates and things out. Okay, they get to do all the dishes tonight. So little things that are tied to those sort of those consequences. Another one, and this is one we use in my home, and I love it, love it, love it. Contribution chores. This is adapted from a program called Strengthening Families. I believe in like the balance between good and evil in the home. So when there's a behavior that is a negative behavior that we don't like, then they can earn a contribution chore. They're giving back. They're making the world better again. So we have a behavior, they earn a chore. We actually came up with this list, and if you can see the list, there's things like washing mirrors, sweeping the kitchen and dining room, vacuuming living room hallway, cleaning a toilet, cleaning the bathroom sink, scrubbing the kitchen floor. They have different number values based on, scrubbing a toilet, that's kind of icky, not so fun. So it's worth a little bit more than sweeping the living room or dining or kitchen or dining room or living room. So it's based on sort of the amount of time, and then, whether it's more or less agreeable, disagreeable. These are also, by the way, these are not chores that are their typical daily chores. These should be additional weird chores. You see, like cleaning under the kitchen counters, for example. So what are some things that don't normally get done in your home that could be, that's a good. So think of some of those ideas. So it happens. You got the behavior, the kid does whatever he or she does, and we get mad. Okay, let's find that space to calm down. Okay, and we may need to say, pause. I need to calm down. I'm really so mad right now. I need to step away. I need you to step away. You go to your room, I'll go to mine. You go to your corner, I'll go to mine. You sit in that chair, I'll sit in this chair. Whatever your space is that you can do that, but find that space to be able to be calm, because you have tools. You already have that list. So explain, here's what you did. Here was the impact of what your decision or your choice. Here is the consequence that goes with it. Remember, this came from our list. We know these. And then walk away. This is really helpful, especially as your kids get older and they start to push back and argue, but that's not fair. You know what? You had the conversation already. Walk away. Here's what the consequence is. I already explained it. You know what you did. I'm done with the conversation. And really don't engage. The more you engage, the more you're feeding into their arguing. They're really trying to get away with it. Don't let it happen. So walk away. So what happens if we're down to the end of the slides here? I got a couple more. I'm going to run through these quick. What if I don't have any ideas? It's okay. You can hit a pause button and say, you know what? There's a consequence. I don't know what it is yet, but there will be a consequence. I will let you know by 6 o'clock tonight. I'll let you know by bedtime. I'll let you know in the morning when you get up. If you're parenting with someone, like I got to talk to mom or dad or whoever. So have that conversation and come back and say, okay, here's a consequence. So what if they get angry? Yeah, so what? They'll get angry. You know what? If you're taking away their cell phone, they're going to get mad. That's okay too. They're allowed to be angry. If they roll their eyes, if they, give you the stink eye, that's okay. Let them be mad. Don't let it bother you. Really, truly, don't let it bother you. They're allowed to be mad. You just took away, if you take away their cell phone, you've taken away their lives. It's okay. You can be empathetic. You can say, yeah, I know you're mad. And I would be mad too. I'd hate me too. if I took your phone away, or if you took my phone away, sure, you can be mad, and that's all. Just let them be mad. What if they don't care? Let me tell you a secret. They do care. They're just telling you that. Okay. They really ignore it. Oh, okay. I understand. That's the consequence. Here's what happened. That's the consequence. You can empathize. Yeah, I think maybe you do care, but I don't need to argue, and don't need to argue. Just here's a consequence. Here's what you get. What if their behavior gets worse, or they throw a tantrum? So here's one where especially if you're coming into this new and you're doing something new with your kids, it may get a little bit worse because all of a sudden you've changed the script. Okay. That's okay. Acknowledge it. They're going to throw a tantrum. And a couple things around the tantrum, especially if you're giving a consequence and they start to give a tantrum or something, walk away from that. Say, this is the consequence. One of the things that I really appreciated this in an article, that you're not adding consequences onto their behavior around a consequence. So I take away your phone, your child starts to throw a fit, okay? And then you just keep adding on consequences. And then it just keeps building. They're going to find themselves in such a deep hole they'll never get anywhere. I do say, let them have that, come back and have some conversation. And there may not need to be additional consequence. If you have a child who, walks away so ticked off, they drop the F-bomb at you or they kick a hole in the wall or something. Yeah, there's some consequence for that. You don't need to address it then. You gave them a consequence for behavior 1, come back later and talk about behavior 2. But stay firm. Another thing, especially if you're coming into this new, hold on to it, keep doing it, okay? Because it will happen. They need to learn. They're trying to learn. Sometimes learning doesn't happen like that. What if it doesn't work? You may find that happens. Sometimes it happens where it's not working anymore. That's okay to reevaluate. You may have done something where you've given such a deep or heavy consequence, or over such a length of time, you're not allowed to cuss for the next 2 weeks. That's a long time, and it's really hard. Do I need to bring that back down because now he's cussing? I'm like, all right, there's another 2 weeks. So you're like 8 months without being able to cuss. Never going to be able to do it. So what can they accomplish? 12 hours. Okay, from now till bedtime. So sometimes you do have to reevaluate that. I think I'm finishing up. Yeah, I am. That's all the content I have to share. I know there were some comments. I want to bring those in, but I want to let everybody know that all of this information is on our website. It's on apcyf.org/parent-support. That's my email, mswish@arlingtonva.us. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have specific questions, and let's actually look at some of those questions. I see a lot of people were sharing stuff about where they came from and their kids. That's great. Oh, this sounds like a good one, Alex. You're sharing, how do you separate child from behavior when it's a concrete action? Kid who, instead of paying attention to schoolwork, is busy making farting noises, picking up everything in reach, flopping on the floor, and otherwise being a pain. He or she doesn't want to do this. Okay. So I think this is where I'm kind of playing a little bit with incentive system and consequence. It's not any specific, right? It's not any particular one. Ultimately, what's happening here, he or she, the child, does not want to do their schoolwork. Understood. So they need to be there for X number of time. So what I'm going to ask you to do is stipulate with him or her, here's the conditions. I need you to be focused on schoolwork. It needs to be seated, quiet, focused, that sort of thing. And if you can do that, then you can earn screen time. You can earn some Lego time. You can earn an extra snack or something like that. So, and then if they cannot do that, then you have they didn't earn it. Sorry. Okay. Another thing you can do, this feels hard because I was going to say one thought is you extend their study time, which really is not going to get us anywhere because you're just going to get more of the same behaviors. So really, I think trying to turn it around and instead of consequence, have it something they can earn or not earn based on that behavior. Okay, because that is, I can see that happening. It's frustrating. So being able to address it in that way, I think having a conversation beforehand as well, in the moment when you're mad and then you get on them, they get mad. So let's have a conversation tomorrow when we're sitting down to study time. You got to study. You got to do 30 minutes or 20, whatever it is, depending on the child. And so I need you to be studying. So I'm gonna point out. I'll pull out the farting noises in particular. You know what? It doesn't matter. There are some things you want to pick your behaviors, and if you find that truly disgusting and like just stop or just really annoying, I understand that. But it's also, is that one that you can live with? Are they sitting there reading or doing their English work and going, really? That might be okay. As long as they're doing their reading, they're doing their science, they're doing their math, and they're going like this, let it go. But some of the other stuff where they're trying to do everything, I did read a little bit about, it was something related, but it was really looking at trying to create an environment. So when you see reaching and picking up everything in reach, that sort of thing, okay, so here's your study space. I need you to stay here, lay down a piece of tape. I don't know, but this child's pushing against. So I'd say start with trying to lay out, here's the circumstances, here's the way I need you to be when you're studying, and then implement that. And if you do, you can earn something. Oh, nice question. I like these. How do you walk back a consequence if you discover its unintended effects? Yes, it's doing stuff you don't want it to happen. I have changed consequences often. It is perfectly okay to stop and say, you know what, that was not what we wanted. Or guilty of being one where like, you're grounded for life, just putting on a consequence that really is not in line with what the behavior was. And my lovely wife comes and says, you know what, that was too much. And I'll go back to the child and say, you know what, I was mad. I didn't like what happened. And therefore, we're going to actually change it up. And here's what's going to happen. So if you find that the consequence for whatever reason is not working out, and sometimes the consequence can impact you, impact the family. And so, realize we thought this was going to be a good one. We're not. We're going to change it. That's perfectly okay to do. They understand that. Oh, what if you lose your temper and yell before you take your own time out? Do you give yourself a consequence? I'm a big believer in that. I have a hard time doing it, I will admit, but my son has pointed that out to me. Being like, you're yelling at me, like, yeah, you're right. Okay. So I think that's a reasonable thing. And I love that as an idea of like really modeling. Yeah, I lost my temper and I'm yelling. So I need to, if you all agreed on what those consequences are, I believe in being consistent with the rules, that we're following the same rules. And yeah, we're getting some consequences. Okay. This is great. These are awesome questions. Alex, question 3: do consequences about being all over the place during class differ for ADHD? Yes. So recognizing a child who has impulse control issues, who really has a hard time staying focused. One thing I'll say, I mentioned the idea of the incentive idea. Instead of saying you need to stay put for 30 minutes, make it 7. Depending on your child, it might be 5 minutes. If you can stay put for 5 minutes, you're going to earn a sticker. Stay put for another 5 minutes, earn a sticker. And if you get 6 stickers, that's 30 minutes, then we're going to get, I don't know what prize. You get 10 extra minutes or you get to play Fortnite. I don't know. But give them some sort of prize. But break it down. Break it down into smaller pieces, because especially for a child with impulse control, attention issues, that can be really hard. And so asking him or her to stay put for 30 minutes, I'm trying to get my hands on the screen, is way too much. So break it down. If can they do 10? And then once they do 10, they say, oh my gosh, you got 10 minutes. Let's hit 12. What do you say? Okay, excellent questions. Thank you so much. If there's other questions, I would be grateful for those. I will ask one more thing if you can throw in there. Give us a little feedback on how this was for you. Throw a number in there, 1 through 5. 1 being like, oh God, please don't make me go through this again. 5 being, this is awesome. Anywhere in between. We are welcome any sort of suggestions or ideas for other topics. We will continue these. I confess that I forget what I'm doing next week. I think it might be, oh no, I do know. It's responding in the moment. What do we do in that moment? I did talk a little bit about it today, but what are some other things, ways we can approach that sort of thing? Okay. Question 4, sure. I'll wait on question 4. I guess you're going to write it out. I'm glad to be helpful, and I believe, well, if one of the things we're always looking for feedback, how to make these better. So if you have specific ideas on topics, specific ideas on times that might be better, obviously this worked for those of you that are here with us tonight. Thank you. Okay, here's a good one. Love these questions. So behavior is not, oh my, I'm hearing you. So when a behavior is not in itself bad, but it's just a nonstop coming at you, like annoying, 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 and you want to yell. I hear you. I hear you. So I think that's actually, I don't think of it in terms of consequences. I think of it as like, I need some space, honey. You know, I appreciate you. I love you. I know your mind is going a mile a minute. You've got an idea. And I get this. I get this from both of my kids where they are on a roll about they talking something and talking, and they just going and going and going and going and going. It's like, okay, I got it. I need a break. Okay. I also have, sorry, I think out loud. So bear with me on this one. The next thing on that, I think about what is the child trying to achieve in this case? The child that's coming at you with something, are they looking for some attention? If you can actually say, I'm hearing you. You are clearly, do you want some attention? Because then you set a time. You say, you know what? I've got this work meeting. I'll be done at 3:30. Let's take 30 minutes together. Okay, I'll hang with you. We'll go out, go for a walk, or you go on their bike and I'll stand and watch. But then give him or her some time. That might be something that can help. Okay, that you can give them, that you can give it to them. Look at this. I'm like trying to catch up on these. Where'd it go? I'm trying to get back to the chats because I saw a question from somebody. So I want to put that slide back up. Why can't I get back up these? Oh, there it is. Sorry, driver errors. Look at this and this. I want a snack. Can I stub my foot? And I drew a picture. Yeah, I'm hearing the attention piece, but I'm also, it's okay to draw a box for yourself. You know, that self-care, put the oxygen mask on before you do for others. Like, honey, I need some quiet. And I, especially for me right now with this, I usually go to the office every day and then I come home and then I'm with my family. I'm here with them every day. I think we're all in the same boat. I find I need to get outside and I do that. I need some time for myself. Draw a box around it. That is perfectly okay. Honey, I love you. I need a break. I've had a long day. I need a break. Okay. I found myself doing that with my own child he's got one and the other ideas he's coming up with. I am trying to prepare for this workshop I'm doing tonight. Can you let me be, please? I need to go back and give him a little bit of time, which I will when we're finished here. But there's another question I think I saw up here. How would I stop one sibling from bothering two siblings during classroom time, especially teaching? One seems to make sport out of it, gets fidgety quicker, hard to separate. Yeah, so I'm reading this question about siblings, and you've got a younger sibling who gets more fidgety, can't hold the attention as long as the others. That's a multiple layered problem, because I think on the one hand, the younger one probably needs something else to do, and when you're finished, or you can stay and sing. I'll go back to incentive ideas. I'm big on incentives because it's like, how can you get them to do what you want? And so, what can that child earn by helping your siblings, helping your brother or sister, because they have to study. So helping means you stay quiet and you work on your coloring book, or you do XYZ other activity. So giving that child something else to do so that he or she has something else to do. And then, also doing that, set a timer. Okay, you've got 10 more minutes. Can you hold and be quiet and still and not bother your sister or brother? Leave them alone for 10 minutes. And I want to be clear, some of the language I'm using is not the best. What is the behavior you want from the child? You need to be quiet. You need to be focused on your work and keep your hands and feet to yourselves and comments quiet, something like that. So you can be very specific. If you have the words no, don't, or stop in your instructions, rewrite them, restate them so that it's very clear what you do want. I don't want you getting up from the table all the time. I need you sitting at the table with knees underneath and hands on top. Okay. So in this case, I need you to be quiet. I need to be focused on an activity, give them choices. You can read a book, you can draw a picture, you can, I don't know, insert something else here. But that is hard, especially when they are all, they're, I don't know, I'm imagining them all at the dining room table and you have one space and that's where it is, because then you're right next door doing your work. So that's hard. That's the best I got on that one. I don't know if I've got other ideas, but I am so grateful for everyone with the questions and for being part of this, and for giving any sort of feedback. I didn't see numbers. I think I saw somebody give me a number. So thank you. As I said, this webinar will be recorded. I actually will cut the Q&A off. I saw someone else did this where they actually separately put the Q&A from the webinar so that folks who were not part of this can watch the webinar. And if people want to come back and see what else was in the Q&A, they can do that too. We'll see. Anyhow, it'll be on the recording. We hope to have that on our website tomorrow. We actually have a YouTube channel, RL Partnership, something like that. But the link is on the website. So if you go to the website, also on the website, I've got a thing on like guidelines for consequences and that table, for doing the consequence. Oh, I have a list of consequence chore ideas. Contribution chore ideas. Okay. So I don't see other, are there more? Oh, hey, nice to see you, Yanga. Glad you're here. Thank you all for being part of this. And if I don't see any more comments, I'll wait another minute or two. Thank you for feedback. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you being part of this. Please share. We'll be doing this again next week. I think I mentioned we'll have a different platform that we'll be doing this on. We will get that out. The nice thing about this is I've got your emails, and so I will send all of you a reminder about what we're doing next week. Okay? Again, I appreciate it. Again, thank you. We're Department of Human Services and the Child Family Services Division. There's a whole team behind me. You can't see them, but it's not just me here. So thanks very much. Have a wonderful evening, everyone. Hopefully you can take a break, get some rest, take a break from that child that's like this. Okay. I appreciate you all and appreciate your time tonight. I am going to go ahead and knock us off here and wish you all the best.